The morning fog hung thick over Pacifica, California, that March day in 1990, clinging to the coastal cliffs like a damp, grey shroud. It muted the world, swallowing sound and blurring the sharp edges of reality. Sergeant Jack Monroe, his home office a sanctuary of quiet grief, had just poured his second cup of coffee when his radio crackled to life, a static-laced intrusion into his solitude. Unit 23, this is dispatch. We have a 10:54 at Devil's Slide. Fisherman reports a possible police vehicle at the base of the cliff, requesting immediate response. Jack's hand froze mid-reach for his toast. Devil's Slide. The name itself was a warning, the treacherous winding stretch of Highway 1 where the unforgiving Pacific Ocean met sheer rock faces. He'd driven that route countless times in his 20 years on the force, but something about this call made his chest tighten, a cold fist clenching around his heart. Dispatch. This is Unit 23, Monroe responding. ETA 10 minutes. His voice was steady, betraying none of the turmoil inside. He grabbed his jacket and headed for his patrol car, the coffee forgotten on the counter. As he pulled out of his driveway, his radio came alive again. It was Detective Maria Estrada, her voice tight with an urgency that amplified his own. "Jack, it's Marie. I'm already en route. Helicopter's been dispatched. Meet me at the northern observation point." "Copy that. What are we looking at?" "Fisherman says it's definitely one of ours. Old model, heavily damaged." She paused, and Jack could hear the unspoken weight in her silence. Dispatch ran a preliminary check on missing patrol vehicles from the area. There's only one unaccounted for in the past 20 years. Jack's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. He didn't need her to say the name. Laura. His wife. Missing for 13 years, her patrol car vanished without a trace on a routine night shift in 1977. The official theory, whispered in the station's hallways and implied in sympathetic glances, was that she had simply abandoned her duties, her marriage, her life, and run away. Jack had never believed it. The drive to Devil's Slide took exactly 9 minutes and 37 seconds. Jack knew because he counted every one of them, his mind a frantic reel of memories he'd tried to bury for more than a decade. Laura in her crisp blue uniform, her badge gleaming as she'd kissed him goodbye that last evening, her blonde hair feathered in the style of the late 70s, the forced smile when she'd promised to be careful, the endless, hollow silence of the empty bed that had waited for her return. The observation point was already a chaotic tableau of official vehicles when he arrived, their red and blue lights painting the oppressive fog in surreal, strobing colours. Yellow tape cordoned off the cliff edge, where a cluster of uniformed officers peered down at the rocky shore below. Jack spotted Marie immediately, her dark hair pulled back in its characteristic bun, her detective's shield prominent on her belt. "Jack!" She turned as he approached, her brown eyes full of a sympathy that was both a comfort and a torment. "You should prepare yourself. The coroner's been called." He nodded curtly, unable to speak, and pushed through to the cliff edge. Below, barely visible through the morning haze, lay the twisted skeletal remains of a patrol car. Even from this height, he could see the rust that had eaten through the metal like a voracious cancer, the way the roof had caved in from years of pressure and the relentless pounding of the waves. The distinctive whoop-whoop of helicopter rotors announced the arrival of the rescue team. The fisherman who'd made the discovery stood nearby, a weathered man in his 60s. "Been fishing these waters for 30 years, he said to Marie, his voice shaking. "That car wasn't there last week. The storm 2 days ago must have dislodged it from wherever it was hiding. When the sun hit that chrome bumper this morning..." He shook his head. "I knew right away it wasn't right." Jack watched as the Coast Guard chopper descended, its crew rappelling down the cliff face with practiced efficiency, attaching heavy cables to the vehicle's frame. The process was painstaking, agonizingly slow. Finally, the radio crackled. "Lifting now." The gathered officers fell silent. The cables went taut, and slowly, impossibly, the rusted hulk began to rise from its watery grave. Water poured from its broken windows like tears, and chunks of rust and debris rained down on the rocks below. Jack found himself holding his breath as the car cleared the cliff edge and was guided to a flat, cleared area. Up close, the devastation was absolute. The patrol car, a 1975 Plymouth Fury, was barely recognizable. The ocean had not been kind. Barnacles crusted the undercarriage like grotesque armor. The forensics team moved in, their methodical calm a stark contrast to the storm in Jack's soul. "License plate still partially readable," one of the techs called out. "Running it now." Marie's hand found Jack's shoulder, a small grounding pressure. "You don't have to be here for this." "Yes, I do." The tech with the laptop looked up, his face grave. "VIN matches. This is Officer Laura Monroe's patrol vehicle." The words hit Jack like a physical blow. 13 years of not knowing, of enduring the pitying looks and the unspoken accusations. Now, here was the proof. Something terrible had happened that night. Opening the driver's door, the lead forensic tech announced. He pulled, and the door came away entirely, its hinges rusted through. The interior was a cave of shadows and decay. "No remains visible," the tech reported, and Jack released a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Relief, disappointment. He couldn't tell. The search continued. A flashlight, its batteries long since leaked and corroded. A citation book, its pages fused into a solid, unreadable mass. Then, from beneath the driver's seat, a small, glinting object, a brass shell casing. "40 caliber, the tech said, holding it up in a pair of tweezers. "Same as department issue." "Blood," another tech called from the rear of the vehicle. "Degraded, but definitely blood under the back seat." He popped the trunk. "Significant traces in here too." A new, authoritative voice cut through the scene. "What the hell is going on here?" Richard Hensley, the department supervisor, strode through the crime scene tape like he owned it. Hensley had been Laura's supervisor too, back in '77. Now, in his late 50s, he'd grown thick around the middle, but still carried himself with the swagger of a man used to being obeyed. "Richard," Marie said, "we've confirmed it's Laura Monroe's vehicle." Hensley's face cycled through several expressions before settling on official concern. "Christ, after all this time." He looked at Jack. "You shouldn't be here." "I'm fine." "Blood and brass," the forensic lead summarized. "This is definitely a crime scene." "Now let's not jump to conclusions," Hensley said quickly. "That blood could be anyone's. For all we know, Laura might have been involved in something that went wrong. Shot someone, panicked, ditched the car." "That's not Laura," Jack said, his voice flat and cold. "She wouldn't." 13 years is a long time, Jack. People aren't always who we think they are. Hensley's tone was sympathetic, but firm. "Marie, get DNA testing on those blood samples. It's new technology, expensive, but spare no expense." As if summoned, the first news van appeared on the horizon. Jack soon found himself in front of the cameras. "Sergeant Monroe, how does it feel to finally have answers?" "Is it true Officer Monroe was under investigation?" Jack straightened his shoulders. "Officer Laura Monroe was a dedicated member of this department," he said, his voice ringing with a conviction he hadn't felt in years. She had just been promoted to patrol sergeant. She was hard-working, honest, and committed. Nature has finally surrendered this evidence, and we won't waste the opportunity. Marie gently guided him away. Hensley appeared at his elbow. "She's right. You're too close to this. Take a few days. Let us handle it. I can work this case." "No, you can't." Hensley's tone brooked no argument. "You're emotionally involved. That's a fact." Jack looked between them, then back at the rusted shell of Laura's past. He was too close. He knew it. "I have copies of the original case files at home," he said finally. "I'll review them." "Fine," Hensley said, visibly relieved. "Just don't go playing detective on your own." Jack's house sat quiet in the midday sun. He headed straight for his home office and pulled a brown cardboard box from the top shelf of his closet. Laura Monroe, 1977, was written in black marker across the side. He sat on the floor, spreading the contents around him. Laura's photograph stared up at him from her personnel file, her blue eyes bright with pride. She'd been 28. He grabbed the logbook copies, running his finger down the entries from November 18th, 1977. Laura's handwriting, neat and precise. 2000 hours, beginning patrol, Sector 7. Then 2015, routine traffic stop, Highway 1, mile marker 42. Warning issued, nothing after that, no distress call, no request for backup, just silence. He shuffled through the frustratingly minimal witness statements. Her partner that night, Officer Patricia Harris, had last seen her at 2000 hours. 2 other civilians had seen a patrol car but couldn't confirm it was Laura's. He leaned back against the wall. Laura wouldn't have just driven off the cliff. Someone else had to be involved. His eyes fell on the duty roster. At the bottom of the logbook page was another name, Deputy Carl Bowen, night shift supervisor. He'd signed off on the log entries. Jack grabbed his phone and dialed Marie's cell. "Jack, I'm almost at the station. What's up?" "I need you to look into a Carl Bowen. He signed the logbook the night Laura disappeared." "Bowen? He transferred to San Mateo County about 8 years ago. Why?" "I want to talk to him. Pull his current contact information." "Sure. You coming in?" "On my way." Instead of driving directly to the station, Jack found himself turning onto Highway 1, heading south toward mile marker 42, the location of her last stop. The area hadn't changed. To the east, he could see the old industrial docks at Moss Landing, their metal buildings rusted and weather-beaten. He was about to leave when another patrol vehicle approached. The driver's window rolled down. "Jack Monroe? That you?" Carl Bowen had aged well, his hair grey, but his face still lean. He wore the San Mateo County Sheriff's uniform with easy confidence. "Carl, this is a coincidence?" "Yeah, heard about this morning. Terrible thing." Carl's expression was sympathetic, but guarded. "Actually, I wanted to ask you about the logbook from that night. You signed off on it." Something flickered in Carl's eyes. "That was 13 years ago, Jack. But yeah, I remember. Everything was in order." He shifted the car into gear. "Listen, let's grab coffee sometime. I'm patrolling the San Pedro area today, near the Valley Park. Give me a call." He gave a brief wave and pulled away. Back in his car, Jack turned on the radio. A replay of his interview was playing. She had just been promoted to patrol sergeant. His own words sparked a cold thought. Laura had been newly promoted, young, female, ambitious, in a department dominated by old-school cops. He knew how brutal the politics could be. Why had she been alone that night? The Pacifica Station parking lot was half empty when Jack pulled in. He was reaching for his door handle when movement caught his eye. Richard Hensley, pacing along the side of the building, cell phone pressed to his ear. His voice rose, carrying across the lot. "Car came up. Your job. Move it. Now." Jack climbed out quietly. Richard spun around, his eyes widening when he saw Jack. The surprise on his face quickly shifted to something else. Fear. "Jack!" Richard called out, forcing a smile. "Thought I told you to take some time." "Couldn't stay away? Was that about Laura's case?" "What?" "Oh, the call." Richard fumbled his phone into his pocket. Yeah, it was the evidence yard, giving me grief about moving the car. It's an environmental hazard, you know, EPA regulations. He laughed, but it sounded forced. Had to light a fire under them. It made sense, but it felt wrong. Inside, Marie was huddled with 2 forensic techs. Degraded samples are always problematic, one was saying. This new DNA testing requires high-quality material. What we pulled from that car, we're looking at weeks minimum, maybe months. Jack's hope deflated. What about the bullet casing? He asked. The second tech flipped through his notes. That's more definitive. It's a .40 caliber, matches the department-issued ammunition from 1977 Laura's gun. Laura's blood or someone else's? The uncertainty was maddening. He saw Richard disappearing down the corridor toward his office. I need to talk to him about Carl Bowen, Jack told Marie. I ran into him out at Laura's old patrol route. Marie's eyebrows rose. That's quite a coincidence. My thought exactly. Jack knocked on Richard's door. Come in. He found Richard hastily closing a desk drawer, tossing back pills. Blood pressure, Richard explained. This case? I need to ask you about Carl Bowen, Jack said. He was the night supervisor who signed off on the logbook. Richard's expression tightened. You're wasting time, Jack. Carl Bowen is a good cop. You want to start suspecting your brothers in blue based on a signature. I'm not suspecting anyone, I just want a complete picture. Richard stood abruptly, swaying. I need to check on the car transport. He headed for the door, stumbling slightly. Jack caught his arm. Richard's skin was clammy. Jesus, Richard, are you okay? I'm fine, Richard pulled away. Just this damn diet my wife's got me on. He left, forgetting to lock his office. Something was definitely wrong. Marie appeared at his elbow. My office, now! Inside, she pulled a document from her desk. I was going through the archives, found this misfiled. It was a witness statement, unsigned, unstamped, describing a patrol car and a white van on Devil's Slide Road the night Laura disappeared. Where was this? In a completely unrelated residential burglary file from 3 months later, Marie said. She pulled out another folder. And here's the official signed statement from the same witness, Belinda Carlson. In this one, she says she saw nothing unusual. The same witness, 2 completely different stories. Jack dialed the number listed for Belinda. The line was dead. The address is only 5 minutes away, Marie said. As they turned onto Belinda's street in Fairmont, Jack's blood ran cold. Richard Hensley's department-issued sedan sat in front of a yellow house with peeling paint. Richard himself stood on the porch, jabbing his finger at a woman who was backing away. He pressed a thick envelope into her hands, leaned close, and said something that made her flinch. They waited until Richard left before approaching the house. What else do you people want? Belinda snapped as she opened the door, then stopped short, seeing their unfamiliar faces. We'd like to ask you some questions about a statement you gave in 1977, Jack said. When he held up both conflicting statements, her shoulders sagged in defeat. Fine, come in. Her voice was barely a whisper as she recounted what she'd really seen. I was a park ranger at San Pedro Valley Park. Driving to work, I saw a female officer pulling over a white van on Devil's Slide Road. The van was old, no windows in the back. She described how, later that night, while meeting her husband in a secluded part of the park, they'd heard a scream. And then, around 12:30 a.m., she saw the same white van driving out of the park. I tried to report it, she said, her voice turning bitter. But your supervisor, Hensley, he took my statement. She thrust the envelope at them. It was full of cash. He paid me to change my story, said I needed to simplify it. A week later, I was fired from my job after an anonymous complaint. Hensley made sure I couldn't get another ranger job anywhere. We need you to make an official statement, Marie said. Belinda shook her head violently. Number, he knows something's happening. He's a respected supervisor. I'm nobody. Who's going to believe me? Find more evidence. Build a case he can't wiggle out of, then I'll testify. Back in the car, Jack slumped in his seat. She's right. Then he straightened. Carl Bowen. He said he was patrolling San Pedro Valley Park today. Same park where Belinda worked. That can't be a coincidence. Marie's eyes gleamed. Then let's go see what Officer Bowen is really up to. San Pedro Valley Park stretched before them. As they pulled into the main lot, Jack saw them. Richard's sedan and Carl Bowen's patrol car. They found cover and watched as Hensley and Bowen emerged from a trailhead. Carl carried a shovel. Richard clutched a large black plastic bag. Jack and Marie crept closer. Told you this was unnecessary, Carl was saying. Richard placed the bag in the trunk of a wooden crate. Unnecessary? Did you hear Monroe on the news? They found the car. Carl, there's blood, bullet casings, and this new DNA testing. If they confirm that blood is Laura's, they'll want the body. They'll start questioning everyone again. That Carlson woman, one of them talks and we're finished. Richard moved the crate to Carl's trunk. Are you stupid? He hissed. Take this somewhere secure, somewhere I don't even know about. Just get it done. They slammed their trunks. Richard drove back toward town. Carl headed north. Marie followed. He's moving a body in broad daylight in a police vehicle, she muttered. Carl turned into the Sharp Park water treatment plant, a sprawling complex of concrete buildings and tanks. He drove to a service road at the back, parked, and hefted the crate and his shovel into an area of tall grass. They watched from the fence line as he dug a hole. He upended the black bag and human remains tumbled out, bones, tattered fabric. Then Carl did something that made Jack's blood boil. He reached into the hole, plucked out a small bone, and slipped it into his pocket. A trophy. He filled in the grave and drove to an abandoned generator shed at the far end of the complex. He went inside and emerged moments later carrying a brick of what was clearly narcotics. Then two men emerged from the shed, pushing two terrified teenage girls toward Carl. He grabbed them and shoved them into the back of his patrol car. That's it, Jack said. We need backup, now. Marie was already on the radio, calling for a tactical team, her voice low and urgent. A white van, identical to the one Belinda had described, appeared from deeper within the facility, positioning itself to be escorted out by Carl's patrol car. The audacity of it was breathtaking. The sound of approaching sirens shattered the quiet. Carl tried to bluff his way through, but Marie was on him in an instant. "Save it, Carl, we saw everything." "It's a misunderstanding," he protested as she cuffed him. Jack leaned in close. "Too bad we watched you bury human remains 30 minutes ago." Carl's face went white. The tactical team breached the shed, revealing a massive professional-grade meth lab in the basement. More victims were found, women held captive. This was more than corruption, it was systematic evil protected by badges. After securing the scene and arranging care for the victims, they returned to the makeshift grave and carefully excavated Laura's remains. Back at the station, Hensley was in an interrogation room, the confident supervisor gone, replaced by a sweating, handcuffed man. "This is a mistake," he began, but his voice lacked conviction. "We saw everything, Richard," Marie said calmly. "The payoff to Belinda, moving the remains, the laboratory, the trafficked women." Richard stared at the table. When he finally looked up, something had broken in his eyes. "Fine," he said. "I'm tired. My best chance is a plea deal." He confessed everything. Laura had pulled over a van carrying a meth shipment that night in 1977. The driver panicked and shot her. They had called Richard, their inside man. "Carl wanted to call an ambulance," Richard said, his voice a ragged whisper. "But she'd seen the driver. She could identify them, so I finished what the runner started with her own weapon. He gave them names, dates, contacts. The corruption ran so deep it threatened to gut the entire department. Jack stumbled into the corridor, the weight of 13 years of lies crashing down on him. A forensic tech approached him. "Sergeant, we need you to identify something." In the evidence room, among Laura's remains, was a small, tarnished pendant on a chain, the platinum heart she had worn every day. Jack took the evidence bag, his hands trembling. He turned it over. Engraved on the back, he could still read the elegant script, "Jack and Laura, forever." The tears came then, a flood of grief held back for too long. She hadn't left him. She had been stolen from him. He pulled himself together. Marie emerged from the interrogation room looking drained. "He gave us everything," she said. "This is going to tear the department apart." "Good," Jack said firmly. "It needs to be." The badge had to mean something. For Laura, for the women they'd saved, for the community that trusted them. They would make sure it did again. The long, ugly battle was just beginning, but for the first time in 13 years, the fog in Jack Monroe's world had started to lift.